Hello class. Today we're going to be going over Ni, the power of Ni, a bit more and focusing on the distinct signal it gives off, which is frustration. Now, a few things before we go into it is that, one, I'll attempt to not be frustrated while I'm talking to you now, but if you've seen the other filmings, the distinct signals, it is difficult actually to talk about a power for an extended period of time and not sort of begin to get in touch with it. It actually has to do with spirit forming and peak pathways later. So that's one thing to mention off the bat. The other is that of the 8 powers, Ni and Jai are the two that are very difficult for people to define and are the two powers most common for people to either disbelieve exist in themselves or to wall up in themselves as a place is like, I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to not go there. So kind of like with the Jai poignancy, we're going to begin to try to define something that can be a bit difficult. And as a part of that also is similar to Jai. Not only is there a difficulty sometimes in expressing it, and for two different reasons. Jai because it's so formless and Ni because it's so vast. But either way, explaining what they are is very, very difficult. But another thing they share in common, although they're on different sides of the brain, one's a perception, one's a discernment, is discomfort. Is both Ni, the frustration, and Jai, poignancy, there's a bit of discomfort that is associated with it, and that's how they work. So I want to tell you that humans actually have that in them, and don't be frightened of this, don't be weirded out, because if you do, it just makes the process harder, and it's a necessary one. Okay, so I will attempt to go through the powerful lows of Ni now and highlight where frustration can enter into it, similar as I did with poignancy and buoyancy. First is the concept of the unknown. There's a few frustration points in that. The first is, why don't I know? Ni starts the point of view of, hey, Psyche, hello, you don't know something. So it starts with, you're kind of going about your business, you're doing your daily work, and a phone call comes into your office and says, hey, what you've been doing for whatever, this day, this week, this month, actually, I think that might not be it. We should probably stop what we're doing. Well, that's frustrating, okay? And that is the beginning of Ni. And this is why it has to have the kind of sensations it has, because it calls for a full stop of the rest of the psyche. The entire rest of the psyche has to accept Ni's authority in this way. All the pod powers have an authority, an area of the psyche that's like their province. Some of the powers have been unusual. For example, like I mentioned with Ni actually touches all of them. The way it works, it's a connected one. And Ni is also unusual in that it encompasses all the other powers, at least your current understanding of them. So when Ni rears its head, the first thing it does is tell the entire rest of the siblings that they need to stop what they're doing because we don't know something. Okay. Well, what is that? Well, that's the next part. Finding that out is not easy. It's a bit of a frustrating process. Why? Well, let's take it from its point of view as a pod power, simply from the human design. 4 of the other powers are discernments. So they know a thing. They can learn it in that way. It has dynamics or criteria. The perceptions are more raw. All the perceptions are like raw information. So Ni shares that with the other 3 perceptions, but why is it more frustrated? Well, because it's not exactly sure what it's going after, except that what is currently available is unacceptable. That the V5 senses are not telling us enough. Well, it starts with all the discernments clearly need to stop and wait for more perception to come in. That's the first thing. But above and beyond that is even V, with its 5 senses and its wonderful abilities there, it's not getting it. We're missing something. We're still missing something. Vi, history. History doesn't have it. It's not there. It's something else. It's some sort of universal natural law. Ni is very much about natural law because you come wired with a lot of spirit forming that knows how things work in a universal way. sort of like the story of humans, it's evolved for all this time. Nai is directly giving that story in its raw form from the unconscious. So for this reason, it decides if it's seeing the story or this the concept of something correctly in the environment. And more often than not, and the higher up in your psyche, the more often this is, it's not seeing what it needs. So discernments are going to be inadequate just because they're discernments, but the perceptions, because even Ni is taking abstractions from the environment in real time, but Nai, being a subjective perception, is sort of following one signal until it gets where it wants to go, thus the hunter versus gatherer analogy. So there's a frustration in what's available, even abstractions. The spirit forms that are coming from Nai are basically saying humans or systems or whatever, they do things like this. You should look into that. Memories won't be adequate, because if they were, I'd already know. That's key. I'd already know. The V, five senses, it's not adequate. Even when Nai finds things through five senses, it's finding a piece of natural law in there, a motif, a spirit form natural law, but it's not even seeing it there. It's actually in its own story. This is different than abstractions. It's unlocking characters in its inner Sims game. These characters can be more human personified type, or they can be more systemic, mathematical, but they are ways of thought, perceptions in a universal, evolved way that they want to have their self voiced out here. But it can be very difficult to get that. In fact, they are uncompromising. They simply know the way the spirit form technology says to do it, and they want to overlap. And when they overlap, if it's not the fit, they don't abstract. They keep just going, where's the fit, where's the fit, where's the fit? This is why they're much more directive in nature. So, what does this mean? Well, before we get into the power flows, at the simplest, the creature is going to have to move. They're going to have to move in their environment and in their psyche, perhaps in the memories, and sniff around. That's all you get. You're just going to have to sniff around and see what it is, because the Nai says, hello, you've missed something. Similar when, like, Vi works, they see a glass or a door or a person, whatever, and their memory tickles them like, hey, I think it's familiar. And if they pull away from it for a second and go into the memory, they'll get it. But they know how they're doing it, that Rolodex way. That's how they search for it. But with Nai, there is a being told that you don't know something, but when you go to look for it, you basically have to sort of just and let it come to you. That's very frustrating, especially because of the imperative nature that directive powers all have. Of the three directive powers, the four directive powers on the left, the other three, you can easily execute them in a very yang way. In fact, Nai is kind of unusual. Most of the left powers are considered, well, they all are considered to be yang in nature. There's subdivisions of that because perception is yin to discernment yang, and we'll have a filming on that. But the point is, on the directive side, all the directive powers have very much like an imperative nature to them. But three of them have a fairly clear-cut way of how you would begin to do that. Vi, memories, and Z, systems, that's obvious. That's how most things are done. That's a DMV. So that everyone can just go look that up. Even G, though, you can go ask people and figure out what that is. But Nai, you just have to get to a still place and let it come up from the surface of the water. Considering how the Nai yanked you, that you had to go look at it, it's kind of annoying that you have to wait for some very artistic percolation system. So it's like, hello, I have things to do. Even people have Nai high in their psyche, because the world is not very conducive to that. It's annoying to actually have to go answer that, because it's a timeout from everything. Of all the powers, even more than Jai, Nai is a timeout from everything. In fact, the best way to do Nai is like just go into a sensory deprivation chamber. Nothing. Lay down, think of your eyes, and that's when you'll feel the power and understand the power at its most a lot of times. So that combined with an extremely directive nature. In fact, of the left brain powers, it is Vi and Nai, because they're the agenda, that have the most drive. This is execution, this is the force of it, but this is the drive behind the force. But like I said, having to go into some sort of like nearly meditative state or lucid dreaming in order to get my directives that apparently are like alpha, imperative, you know, ASAP, mega, it's like, you would think if it's that imperative, I would be able to receive the information I need a bit easier. So before I get into it, you have to understand that is just inherently frustrating. We also use the term deep anger. You may hear that in some of the filmings, but that's a shade or a subdivision of the frustration. It relates to some of the counterbalances we'll get into at the end. So now we'll start the power flows. So we have the concept of the unknown. So I kind of already got into a little bit, which is the call to, the detach / call to imagine. That sounds nice. You're like, detach, call to imagine. Ooh, what is it? Magic fantasy. That sounds, but that's not how it is. Not at all, because in order to get that, you have to be completely open. And this may be obvious to some people, and some people maybe not, but I will explain it to you now. You have to be frustrated to completely let go of something. You have to be frustrated with a relationship to completely let go. You have to be frustrated with the system to like kick it to the curb, to blow it up, to go. Those kinds of things you have to be frustrated for. But in order to see things the most clearly, you must be removed from them. So frustration actually sets up detachment. It's quite hard to be detached if you are not frustrated with the environment. That gets into one thing. A lot of people have Nai. When you talk to them about it, they are like, what are you talking about? I'm not a frustrated individual. I'm a Zen. That's what we call faux Zen. And that's because they're very good at controlling it, controlling those energies of them. But that doesn't change the fact that they have this frustration with the world. If you go into a monastery and spend much of your time chanting and just chilling out, that could seem like the exact opposite of frustrated. But you have to be frustrated to check out from the world like that. To actually say, I don't want to play this game. I can't do this. This is ridiculous. This is not what my spirit forms are saying it's supposed to be. In Naiji, my kind, this is going to have a very philosophical bent. With Nai-Z, it often has a very theoretical bent, but with both of them, there's a very much a crossover in the metaphysical to natural sciences, trying to explain why things work. And the first thing you have to do in order to solve a case that no one else can solve, or you can't solve, is get frustrated with yourself. Get frustrated with the way you're looking at it. So that perhaps you've needed to take the case in a different direction, but you're just in this zone. You have to kind of hit a dead end to where you're like, I don't know what to do. It's not anything I'm doing now. And then you pull back to a higher perspective. But like I said, it kind of seems like a timeout from everything. So all of the pod powers and all of their mojos therefore reflect that's a timeout from life. A lot of people feel this way. A lot of Nai Alpha. I've spoken to Nai Alpha I know well who actually dislike that about their own source. And Nai, by the way, is awesome. I mean, it is so awesome. It's hard to define exactly how awesome it is. But a lot of Nai users actually dislike that part about themselves. The fact that it just comes and goes as it wants. That when they're trying to enjoy life, I'm trying to like get into life, and it like keeps making me think these drifty thoughts. Why can't I be here? So this gets into, before I move on to the rest of the power flows, because it's going to relate now, is how Nai relates to the other powers in general. We'll start with the objective discernments. That's how Nai is going to be able to explain itself to the world, to articulate itself, to define itself. This is always going to be somehow trying to define something that cannot be defined. That's frustrating. So that never goes away. You can get these powers very, very good, but the sensation that there is a loss of information, of grandness, of the complete scope as you try to explain the largest perspective possible in your mind through words, through mathematics, things like that. It's very difficult. So that's frustrating. Over here is Nien V. V is frustrating because it's the most prevalent of all the pod powers. It's the 5 senses stimulus. Everything you do is a cocktail of all the 8 powers, but different ratios. But if you take it as a totality, V V is the most represented power in day-to-day activities because there's never a moment that you're not experiencing the five senses even when you're sleeping. So even when you're in dreamy land, which is where Nai tends to be very strong, the V still gets in. V is the modulation power of Nai. So you can think of it as its kryptonite. Each power's modulation is kind of its kryptonite. You're built that way. However, there can be overmodulation. And any mojo can suffer from this, but Nai alphas suffer from this more than any other mojo. Nai as a power suffers from this more than any other power because V random stimulation that doesn't have any point to the Nai's agenda will shut it down. And that's basically everywhere. When you wake up in the morning, the weather, the sun, the sound of cars, people talking to you, anything at all can be disruptive. You have an itch. That itch now focuses your concentration and Nai can't do what it needs to do. So the most mundane of life things will shut down Nai's processes, which really annoys it because it considers what it's doing to be the biggest picture. So the biggest picture that will capture the most data of the entire psyche as sort of like a snapshot of the whole thing is shut down very frequently by what most people consider to be very normal stuff. Jai also suffers in some way from that, of like being shut down by things that are considered really normal. Ni. I'd say Nai, Jai, and Ni are like that. They share that as normal things like V, Vi, and Z. That's considered like normal stuff. That is around all the time, and it's considered odd that that would shut you down. That would actually be an issue of overmodulation. On the other hand, because of Nai's nature, most of the other powers, and therefore out here, and especially with the way memes are, there is a very quick overmodulation of Nai. That's what people think. If you come in and say, okay, we need to stop what we're doing right now, and let's like think big here. Let's go big. Okay, you're gonna get listened to for maybe a little bit of that before you're like, okay, the day needs to move. Life needs to move, things need to go on. So you don't get much patience or indulgence in how it rolls out. Okay, finally I was touching this one because, like I said, Nai is very complex, is the Jai and Zai. These powers are the stabilizers in the psyche, and Nai users, particularly those who have it very high in their priority, it's not uncommon for it to throw them around so much from such an early age that they have to bring in their stabilizer, the compass bearings, to an extreme degree to hold it down. When they do this early on in life, they feel very zen. I'm a zen person. In fact, they're very good at controlling energies because their Nai is giving them a tremendous amount of impetus energies to do things and to think in different directions and to go, 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 go. I mean, when a Nai gets out of thought, it's going to find the answer, no matter what. There are no limits. That's what it does. It breaks limits to find out where it is because apparently the limited view didn't get it. We need the unlimited view. So that's something to note. I'll not focus on too much, just to note that there have been numerous people who asked to be read by us who are Naiji, my mojo, who believe they are a Zai Alpha, a Zai Ni, or a Zai V, or something like this. And it's because it's very common for the power of Nai to throw a person around so much that they need to control it. And that doesn't change the signal. So just know that when you're training this method, this frustration signal we're talking about, it won't matter if they stay in their Nai most of the time and don't tell anybody about what's going on there. It won't matter if they are very, very good at talking about it and bringing characters out to show it off, comedians and actors. It won't matter if they're very action-oriented, if they're an MMA fighter, if they're a surfboarding champion or anything like that. And it won't matter if they're like some sort of Zen Buddhist or really chill scientist with a lot of Zai. It's still a Naiji. That won't change because that frustration signal will just be getting affected and channeled through these various other powers. Setting the scene. This is Nai writ large. Setting the scene is the most important part of the process according to Nai. Of all the process going around, seeing the big picture and figuring out what's the vision. I mean, what are we trying to do here? What is it we're seeing? What is life? What are humans? What is it all? When we start talking things about like string theory and theory of relativity, that's the realm of Nai. What does it all mean? Because Nai knows it really, in the end, is only one thing. And anytime you can't figure something out, because there are apparent juxtapositions, and this will get to power flows now, that's incorrect. That's not true, and Nai is frustrated when there are apparent perspectives they cross and don't make sense. No, we all live in the same cosmos under the same natural laws, so it should all make sense. It's frustrating that people and systems don't, and that they don't think that that's possible. Okay, so now we're going to go into the power flows a bit more. We talked about the first one, detaching, call to imagine. And that's because of the frustrating thing of we don't know what's going on yet. We're going to. So how do we do that? As I said, we let ourselves be open. It's a very, actually for a directive power, it's the most yin, because directive powers are yin to the, are yang to the yin of the adaptive. But having said that, of those powers, the subjective powers are more yin. So these two are more yin than the ones up front. And within here, literal is more yang than interpretive. So for a left brain power that really wants to get its way, just like all the left brain powers do, it's very yin about how it goes about it. It's not adaptive, that's the funny part. In fact, it's why it's not uncommon for those who have Nai strongly represented to sometimes think that they are adaptive, because of the open flowing nature. But it's the open flowing nature of a hunter on a scent, of an artist chasing down a vision, of a great scientific visionary thinker trying to figure out what is it that no one else is seeing so that things don't make sense. Because they do all make sense, we just don't see it. We just don't see it. Okay, so now we're going to try to take it all in. So we detach so we can take it all in. So what do we get? Well, this will vary a bit depending if you have G or Z, and I'm not going to get into that too much right now, but it does vary. But they will be concepts and visions. These can be more character story based, these can be mathematical, more like model, almost like a sort of a cosmic laboratory in your head, a little what if. That's the main thing, what if. One thing I know, being a Nai-G and having many Nai-Z friends as well, and Nai-G friends, is the game of what if. That is the funnest game in town, because it's the only game in town once you figured out we don't know what's going on. So what is it? I'm going to highlight something that my dad taught me. He's a Nai-G. He was involved in law enforcement and other kinds of things, adventure stuff, and he was a very good detective. And one of the tricks he learned, besides just having really good tenacity, it's important to be a detective, of course, but guessing to get started. It's a very important concept, and that's where the conceptualizing and visioning comes in. That's what Nai does. We don't know what the answer is based on the current data, and there's no more current data coming in. So let's just guess what it is. Let's just make something completely up. It sounds crazy, but my dad was a very good detective. In this tactic I've used my entire life, it's very effective. When you don't know what the answer is, just kind of like hold the cup there and keep throwing things in and see what sticks. That's what conceptualizing and visioning does. Now this can again be a frustrating process because unlike Vi, I can't just go in there and get the answer. It's a fishing process. But those with Nai can get very good at fishing to where you're like, and there you go, here's a fish. But it never becomes a Rolodex. You just get really good at fishing in those waters, but it's a feel, it's a vibe to it. Again, it's interpretive. So the what if is the only thing you can do when there's nothing else that points away. When you do that though, it will point at things, it will tug at things, it will tug outside of the scope you're currently working with. For example, my dad would say, you're on a case and you've run out of leads. Well, if there's nothing to say, this looks like a likely lead, make a possible lead and start pursuing it. As long as you don't go off a cliff with this, which now you just have to watch out for, because we're very driven. But if you don't do that, it's very useful because it will start to, I don't make it sound too gravitas right now, but it's true, it will start to pull the world. As you begin to chase something, you affect the world. You may see, for example, Patrick Jane, the Mentalist. He is a G9 himself and a character as well. Use a technique called negative response. That's classic. What you do is you say, is the door over here? And see what they say. It doesn't matter if they say yes or no. You're just going to keep jumping out and see what they say yes or no to because the answer is in there. That's what astronomers do a lot of times. If you keep crossing things over, you'll hit a star. And once you hit one star, you can connect another star, and then the picture will begin to show itself. This may sound a bit of an odd way to go about it, but it's extremely powerful, and it can do things no other power can do. You can't come up with answers in any other way on unknown problems than Nye, unless you are lucky enough to stumble into a memory from someone else, a V, current phenomenon, or an abstraction, if that's the most likely one, that's going to bump in something new that might re-stimulate the case. But Nye is an aggressive desire to open up a case and let it breathe. You hear the term? Let a case breathe. See what might be missed by other people. And by other people, that could be you yesterday. That could be you before your nap. You come back and you're like, okay, fresh eyes. If I sum it one way, that's what conceptualizing and envisioning is. Inwardly, it's just being open thing. Out here, it's fresh eyes. Again, it's frustrating because as zen as this all sounds, it is so impatient. I want the answer right now. Like I wanted it as soon as they said there was something we didn't know. So I'm like, okay, what's the answer? Well, you must go into the well. Oh, don't give me that shit. Just give me the answer, please. But no, it's not like that. It doesn't work that way. So now we're getting these things, and there's a fishing quality, which means like Ni, although Ni finds it's fun because they're eating. We're not eating, we're looking. Because gatherers can eat as they go. Hunters don't. Hunters don't eat to the very end. So, as we're doing this, we're fishing in there, trying to see what's cool. These things are very fun, and these visions, especially those who have Nye high in their psyche, they're very, well, they're just awesome. However, they don't give a clear indication of what the application is to the other powers and to out here. So, even as fun as they are, and they're really fun, I'm an IG, they're really fun. However, once you get off of the envisioning, conceptualizing, there's the, I still don't know the answer. You still don't know. All you now have is art. You basically have art now. Okay, so now you made some art. That's what usually happens. But what does it mean? I just have, by the way, this is very taxing for the psyche. Nye is a very, it moves the psyche a lot because of the way it's connected to all the other powers. So doing a lot of Nye-based activity is very fatiguing. As fatiguing as V, its modulation is in a physical sense, in a metaphysical or psychic sense, Nye is like heavy, heavy lifting. So at this point, I don't want to sound like a wimp, I'm already really tired and I'm only 2 into the power flow. But I just have art at this point, just raw art or concepts. Okay, so I have to crunch it now. I have to crunch this data. The CVI users don't have to do this. That's because they build up. Remember, they build up mounds. So as they're getting their answer, they're like 25% of the answer, 32% of the answer, and they basically have that much to use. But Nye's more like a photograph developing. Until you can see something in there, it's just a big blurry. Now technically it's all blurry will eventually turn into trees and your dog Sam and the car in the driveway, but right then it's just blurs. So you basically said, I need to reboot, so you took a fresh photograph, and now it's developing. You're like, develop. I'm telling you, Nye has an insanely long attention span and no patience. If I had to sum up the frustration right there, that's it. In infinite scope and attention span and no patience, because the reason why he yanks on you is because Nye comes from the position, or perspective, of you should already know this. It's kind of like when you are looking for your keys, and you looked all around, and all of a sudden you'll stop and you feel like yanking, you like, you usually put this outside when you're frustrated or you bring the milk in on Tuesdays or whatever. You're like, oh yeah. Does that make sense? That's kind of what it does. It makes you stop what you're doing. So it yanks on you pretty hard, like, you actually know this, you just gotta let your brain drift a little bit. So now that you have it, you have to crunch it. So I'm crunching, trying to synthesize it into what it is, what meaning it could have. And this is where it's going to start getting to the next trio of the point of view. So this is going to inform on my point of view. So now that's happening, all of the understanding, all of the knowing that can be gotten out of this batch, because it's like baking bread. So out of this batch, you're crunching it to get the synthesis. As fun as this is, because you are getting really awesome stuff, you're wondering, how's that frustrating? No, he's very uncompromised in this way. It's like a magician's trick. When you find out how it works, you're like, that was so obvious. I should already have known that. So when I synthesize things, when Nye does that, it immediately, as soon as it does, it goes, it was under the rug? That's why people don't see it, they stub their toes. I feel like a moron. I think people are morons. Humans are stupid. And that's one thing that Nye does a lot. It's like when the synthesizing gets the answer, it's like, it was right there. The idea that you synthesize something, it was sitting in front of everyone's face or whatever, and it's like, I'm a fool and so are all the other humans. That's frustrating. Nye, of all the powers, points out how foolish the psyche is on a regular basis. That's what it does. It goes, you think you know everything? Yeah. How come you don't know the answer to this and this? I don't know. You should know the answer. Why don't you walk over there? You walk over there, you get the answer. It's because there was something so obvious that was informing on that, but you couldn't see it. It was out of frame. And once it comes into frame, no matter how cool it was or whatever, you still are like, that's what it was? It's a letdown. It's a bit of a letdown when you realize, like, oh, that was the mystery of life. It was sitting there. Okay. So, now you have a bit of a jaundiced view. You're not going to look at life as you realize that all these mysteries could be figured out if people just stop and look at them from that kind of detached point of view. So, in doing this, this gives a inclusiveness, a ability to shift perspectives, because when you detach like that, it gives, like I said, it's massive, it gives global models. Global models are models that connect up to the objective dynamics and the rest of psyche, so they work for everyone. The downside is it takes forever for the thing to develop, but when it does, it works for anything that would be connected to it. That will have more to do with whether or not G or Z is a tandem power, but that a universal amount of application, theoretical. That's not the frustration thing. I'm sure theoretical physicists will feel me on this one. You got the brilliant stuff and they're like, well, yes, but that is just theory. Oh, don't you just want to throttle them when they say that? Especially when theory's true, you're like, it's true, but you have to prove it. So that's an annoying thing, is Nye comes with the need to go to the modulation of V to finally prove itself. That's a very long process, and until you can finally go, ta-da! People are like, what? You're just making that up, that's not true. So, shifting around perspectives gives the ability to go around the answer you came up with and figure out the answer as it would apply to you or another system. However, you're like, what's the frustration? Sometimes, the answer is more relevant to another person or system than me. Nye's universal. That sounds cool, but I have needs. But it doesn't work that way. It actually starts with, there's a problem with this. You don't know the answer. Go inside. Okay. And then it goes swirly, 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 and then it comes back with, humans or the system are like this, and you didn't see that, and now you do see it, and now you have the answers. Now there aren't any paradoxes anymore. Cool, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's an answer of how I'm going to get my deer for dinner tonight, or anything else like related to me. It's like, here's the universal natural law of whatever, oranges. There aren't any oranges where I live. I could live in some desert, there are absolutely no oranges at all, but now I know about oranges. Yay for me. What does that do? The other frustration is, let's say it's related to a system or to people that I do have a connection to. Did I just explain to you the process it took to get me here? Okay, very few mojos have the powers to do that, and even the ones that do have it don't want to do it. So the chances of when you point out this cool new perspective to these other people or other systems that they're going to be like happy that you did that are slim. They are slim unless you really set your life up the right way. And even then, you're always coming to the point of view of, hey Bob, Sally, yeah. You know the thing you're doing? Yeah. You have to completely rethink that. You expect them to thank you? They don't. People don't thank you when you tell them they have to completely rethink what they're doing. Usually you have to hire outside consultants because everyone hates anyone who actually was there. Like, it's like, yeah. So, next is meaningful insight, seeing the angles. This relates very much to the objective discernment. This is sort of a next step to, I see it for someone else. Like I see someone else's system or someone else, some other tribe's perspective, but that doesn't relate to me or I couldn't convince them or share it with them. There's also the ability to see angles, meaningful insight. And when we talk meaningful insight, seeing the angles, that's me a lot of times. That's relating to me and me and how I work in there. However, just because I can see it doesn't mean I can do it. It means someone could do it if they had whatever, like, if you had $1 million, you could do this and this and this. Why did you even tell me that? Seriously, if I don't have $1 million, why did you even tell me that if I did, I could do this? That's just frustrating. Okay, so moving along. I'm trying to keep this light. By the way, Nye Alphas are known for being excellent comedians. You have to be. You have to have a sense of humor. What's next? Speculation prediction. Okay. From all this, the meaningful insights, it's going to give you an ability to see the game in a systemic way, or maybe interpersonal game, that others don't. And for this reason, you're working with information they don't have, and so you can make better guesses. To the point that it looks like you can speculate or even like predict. I mean, it can get pretty otherworldly impressive. It can guess so well, but it is guessing. For that reason, that's frustrating. How far am I in now? This is like 6 into the power flows, and still I'm guessing? That's a lot of work to still be guessing, don't you think? So that's, I mean, this is my own power. I'm a Nye Alpha, I've had it my entire life, I'm very good at it, but still like, I don't know, at this point I should know what it is, but I'm still guessing. So, you think you have it, but now you're scared, because, well, it is theoretical. So, there's the fear factor of, it could be an angle that I actually could do, but I'm scared it's just a guess. So there's always that, even after you have the answer for yourself and it's one you could actually do, you kind of have to explain to yourself why to do it, because you could try it and it could fall completely flat because it is theoretical. It could just go out there and not fly and just, oh, okay, I feel stupid. By the way, Nye Alpha, hate feeling stupid. I mean, we really don't like it. So it's frustrating that our main mode involves, around Power Flow 7, guessing. So there's a need to sort of fire a few and see which ones stick and keep those. So you kind of have to, what's the word? If you want to make an omelet, you have to sacrifice a few eggs. You kind of have to just assume that when you're, because that's not doing prototyping in a way. That's not what you're doing, is you're trying to guess a way of going. That's an idea prototype. Not prototyping in a tangible way, it's prototyping, for example, like someone's trying to break some sort of record. It could be any kind of record. And you're guessing what approach is the right approach. Perhaps if they tried a completely different approach, it would change the score. We don't really know until you try it. But when you try it, it could be totally right, in which case you're brilliant. Or it could be totally wrong, in which case you're a total moron. Well, not a moron, you're a fool. You feel like a fool, you feel very foolish. So there's always that, why do all this work and I still have this massive trepidation upon trying to see if it'll fly or not. So there's the trepidation and the fact that it is, like me, pattern-based. So it has the advantage of going first and seeing things others don't, but it is hit and miss. So some of them are going to crash. There never comes a point, no matter how good of being a Nye you are, that the first thing the Nye gives you don't crash in some percentage. They always do. And then as you play with them and try to articulate them even in your own mind, more of them will fly. Does that make sense? But no matter how good you get at it, whenever you get the first stuff, it always comes as there's something you don't know, and what is it? They give you a big plop of amorphous stuff, and you go from there. All the way down to, I have to guess. There's another part of that, which is still in speculation. You do that, either no one sees you doing it, or around people who are cool with, sometimes it won't work until the percentage, the accuracy of the prediction speculation goes up. Because the only difference between speculation and prediction is accuracy, percentage accuracy. But as your accuracy goes up, a new frustration comes in at the same power flow. Not the frustration of, is it going to work? It's the frustration of, it is going to work. It's going to work. And you go and talk to people about it, or try to explain it or show it, and you have to show it every time. You have to predict it and then wait for the prediction to come true before they believe it. Every time, a lot. That defeats the whole point, I think those who have Nye would agree, of prediction. There's no point of having prediction and then using it and saying what you were going to do and giving it away. The idea is you take advantage of it beforehand. So if you have the power prediction or speculation and you say to someone, I have a speculation prediction, let's act on it. Well, let's see if your power prediction plays out. Well, then we won't place the bet. No, that's only two. Nye has a bit of gambling to it. So, in not a bad way, but you are guessing. So, explain to someone else that you are very good at guessing, or that Nye is good at guessing to the powers. They want to see a track record. But that's not how guessing works, and it's not what makes guessing powerful. It's the ability to make a play or see something before it unfolds. So there's basically no way around this. It's even with other Nye, because Nye is individual. When Nye has speculation, it's explaining speculations to other Nye users. There is a need to prove yourself with speculations enough times before they'll believe it. Nye users and also Ni users, in fact, Ni are better at that because they have an inspirational relationship. They're more eager to look for the successes. But from Ni to Nye and down, all the way to probably like V and Vi at the end, there is a need for proof of concept. How many speculations and predictions that you give work out before they'll start investing in you, before they'll start believing, before they'll start acting on that without seeing it play out. That's frustrating. Particularly like myself, this frustration can even grow. That's why a lot of my kind actually, as they get older, they feel the need to put things out into art or theory, publications, because as you get not just older, but better and better at it, your percentage is very high. When you walk up and you have a percentage of like 90% speculation, let's say 95% speculation on something simple like you're about to address to the person or to the system. When they go, well, let me see how that plays out, it makes you feel like you're a child again in some ways, and that you have no track record at all. You've not put any work in on a pod pair, but you have. You've put power in the Nye, and the Nye is very, very, very good at guessing. But unless the person knows you and all your track record, then it's still just ideas in the air. It's just ideas in the air, and so that is very, very frustrating. That's why those who have Nye tend to be very selective who they talk to, who can understand their ideas. Next. We're now going to go into movement. So we were wired a certain way, and then we see things that other people don't see. We're kind of predicting how that's going to go and making predictions and interacting. That interacting from the prediction and speculation jumps off naturally into the moving. I was already kind of getting there, which is long-range planning and global modeling. The visions that Nye sees are irrelevant to the resources available. So when it gives its vision, it gives it for how it should work if you get what it takes to do it. That's how it works, and you have to reverse engineer how to get there. It doesn't start from you and then go out. It just goes out and says here, and then it comes back, if you went like this, you can get here. And that's the way. And you could say, can't there be another way? No, not unless Nye can find another way, and it's the only power that can find another way that doesn't exist. And if that's the only way it exists, you have to go that way. But explaining that to yourself is difficult because, I don't know about you all, I don't like taking massive, long ways around. There's also getting people to buy in, because oftentimes with a global model or long-range planning, there's a lot of other resources that need to work in conjunction in order for it to play out. So it's another thing accentuating how V is the most fed of all the powers and Nye the least fed. For Nye to do even a simple thing for it starts at a small global model. That's simple. It's just small global models up to massive global models. But they start at global model. That means there's a very high chance that there's going to be other resources, skills, influxes, dynamics, perceptions, whatever, that you don't have to make what you've been shown work. So you're shown like this awesome thing, like, it might as well be alien technology. I don't have any of this. You know what I mean? Like, I can even see how it works, but like, who has these things? Where can I get them? Will they let me use them? That's another one. Nye often goes into the realm that culture and legality don't have precedence for. So there's the other chance that when you try to make the long-range planning and global modeling that Nye is focused on, that it's going to inherently bump into problems. People are not going to allow you to do that because that's never been done before. Yeah, all the problems you hear classed in movies and stories of like, that's never been done before. Nye hears that all the time. It's annoying. It's frustrating. We then have visionary drive, sense of destiny. This is frustrating on multiple levels. It starts with all that frustration, maybe I should just drop it. It sounds like a big pain in the ass, doesn't it? So I should probably just drop it. You can't. Not if it's really good and really true. It just sticks in Nye's mind. It's the truth, and the truth just grows. Like a big baby, and you're gonna give birth to this baby. It's just a matter of like how you're gonna do it. So there becomes this, you're gonna do it. It's just a question of how much. It's sort of like a case has taken, this gets into one of the distinct signals, obsession. As this model takes form, the Nye begins to obsess on it, and it takes a weight that it must release, it must give form to, it must put out in some way. So there can be a feeling of the person who has the Nye of, okay, Nye, I think I've had a bit enough of you for now. I would like you to, just take hiatus. Each stage builds up massive momentum. By the time you get to this part of it, you can't stop the thoughts. You cannot stop this desire to figure out the mystery and then make manifest the knowing. It just grabs a hold of the Nye. It must bring it to conclusion. So it doesn't matter how long the long-range planning is. It doesn't matter how big the big model is going to be. You just got to start doing it and start grabbing people and systems to make it happen. And you're frustrated with anyone or any system that does not see it and does not contribute its resources and gifts and abilities to that. And that's how Nye thinks. They're like, this is a truth. The only question is how many people are contributing to show truth. Like, we need to put a demonstration on to show this is the truth of something. And, okay, everyone, I need to make truth. What are you doing? We're making truth over here. You're making breakfast. That's frustrating. You're trying to make truth and people are making breakfast. Oh, goodness. You're trying to make, like, the next great pyramid of Giza, and someone else just wants to make, another house. I don't want to make another house. I want to make the next great thing. That's all Nye cares about, unprecedented things. Because only unprecedented thoughts and events and actions and relationships give new knowings. Unprecedented knowings, and that's what it wants. It's gotta happen. Nye itself, even before it talks to you, the psyche, is frustrated. It's frustrated. You can't satiate that creature. It is so hungry. It has an infinite hunger to know the unknown. And since the unknown is infinite, it's just gobble, 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 and I'm hungrier than I was before. Even, I think, V, definitely physically, and even Ni, in an abstract idea way, can get a feeling of I'm glutted now. You know what I mean? But Nye just keeps wanting to eat more after it ate more. It has almost a nuclear fusion kind of effect, so that the person almost feels like this thing's pulling them along and they're just like, around for the magic carpet ride. It's kind of frustrating when your own power doesn't seem like it really obeys you very much. Particularly when it has the ability to move so much to the rest of the psyche around. What else? The upside of that, like I said, is the fact that you will get amazing things done. Nye has visionary drive. That's really cool. But visionary drive, similar to that negative response technique of Jane, is visionary drive has a tremendous impact on the environment. Everyone is going to ask, not, ooh, what's this new great thing you're bringing? They don't ask that. Well, some do, more Ni users and so forth. But in general, the first thing people ask is, what is this huge thing coming in fast and hard to the environment? Who is this person who is clearing out massive amounts of intellectual real estate to put down something? Most people find that like audacious. Nye is considered by most of the pod powers and by the rest of the mojos and therefore social alchemy in the world as audacious in what its requests are, in what its scope of its plans are. Like Frank Frazetta, Naiji, awesome, amazing artist. That man's, jeez. Can't say enough good about him. Point is, you give him a magazine cover to do, he gives you something that wraps around two sides. He gives you something that would fit on a portrait or whatever that doesn't fit there. But you don't tell Nye what size it goes in. It finds the answer and then that's the size. Now, we can say, oh yeah, I understand that. In real life, most people in most situations are not very open to that. They're not open to things requiring that much real estate. If you take a hospital or something, or any kind of organization with a lot of departments, this has a lot to do with, say, NIZ, and you're going to bring in this new greatest thing. But when you do, you start taking up 2-3 floors of the building. You start taking over lots of the staff. And everyone knows it's a good thing, right? It's still annoying. They still feel put out. And that's just the thing, is the way Nye works. When Nye is implemented, even when it is implemented with a G and Z, people feel put out. The systems feel put out because usually means they're going to either be positioned somewhere they didn't know, deleted, absorbed, even though it's the better answer. Most humans and most systems do not respond well to being deleted, destroyed, absorbed, or anything else, even though it is the best answer. You're going, well, should be, yeah, should be, it's not. So that's just the way it is. Now, of course, you couldn't have Nye doing everything like that, because then it would just be like starting everything from scratch, and the world would just be, you know, a nihilistic wasteland. That's not cool. So nihilism one side and artists on the other, and we'll see what happens. So no, that doesn't work. But of the 8 powers, it is one of them, like Jai, that is not given what I would consider to be its correct percentage. We're gonna go here, 12.5. Yeah, that's 8 and 100, right? It did not get its 12.5%. So, not without, and this is the frustration comes in, not without exerting other powers. In fact, whenever Nye gets its way, it usually has to use these powers, or demonstrate over here, or be able to have it calibrated, say with Zai, for example, to a way that it could show off. It basically needs some other power to show off. It has a very hard time showing off on its own. So a lot of the powers don't like being saying, hey, do you mind coming over to my big thing and helping this other model show off? They're like, you know, so that's a constant state of things as well. So now we're gonna get to the last one, which is independence of mind, of that trio, and secretiveness. And that's because it goes to the visionary drive. Even though this is uncomfortable, it is the truth, and the Nye has locked onto it, so it's not going to let it go. For this reason, that sounds like you have no choice, and in a way you don't, but there is an upside. It makes you impervious to actually the pushes of the world. Nye is the most independent of the pod powers. The first thing it does is detach and say, shut up, stop talking to me, because you all don't know the answer. In fact, I don't know the answer. We all need to shut up so we can think of the answer. So, coming from that point of view, there's a lot of frustrations built in, both for you and again the bubble that comes out from that. For the person who has the independence of mind, similar like Jai, the poignancy of like everything you do, you have your sacred resources on the line, so it makes everything so heightened. That's cool, but it can be a bit scary. There's a similar thing with the independence of mind. When you basically come at everything of like, this is how I see things. This is like the truth for all times. That's how you feel about the way bacon is made. That's the way you feel about the way we run the world and everything in between. So like, you yourself could wonder, could I be a little more chill about this? Nye doesn't come that way. It comes with truth. That's how bacon's made. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I'm trying to make a joke here so you really get it. But it feels that way about everything. Like I have seen the truth. Sometimes the person wishes, couldn't I just like see stuff? Does it have to be the truth? Because sometimes I just want to make the bacon out of the truth of bacon. Okay, I got it. Truth of bacon, please let the truth. No, won't let it go. So that can be very frustrating. And then, as you can imagine, as you feel that, it's hard to keep that truth to yourself. And so you tell other people, and they're like, can't you keep that to yourself? And you can, but you're still thinking it. And if you have Nye high in your psyche, people know you're still thinking it. You can't help it. You have those independent thoughts that are coming, that are pushing, and they're on the case, and they're chasing it, and they can't be persuaded to go to anything else. That is the only thing on their mind that gets very much the counterbalances of the obsession. You're obsessed, and so it gives an independence of mind to things that don't help with the obsession, because if you're chasing truth, is there anything else more important? No, I mean, I'm not going to say that there aren't, but to Nye there isn't. To Nye it believes there's nothing else more important, and Nye does have the power of encapsulating the other powers, of giving the global framework of them. So when it feels that it is chasing a universal truth, it can pull the other ones along, or at least it'll want to. Those who have Nye on the strong side, it will pull very hard, and the other powers will have a hard time resisting that. Secretiveness. Because that's the truth of bacon. But I just told my dad the truth about omelets 5 seconds ago, so I don't think I should tell him the truth about another breakfast item this soon. This sounds ridiculous, but when you have the truth of, you can't be talking like that. You can't, the world doesn't work like that. You had to kind of like develop the truth into proof of concepts and dynamics and things you can define and articulate. And I found that people like you also do space them out. They like truth spaced out because this goes with spirit forming. When truths come into a certain size, they will ego death you. They will make the apparatus have to crack its shell and grow, and that's a lot of effort. So people tend, when they feel truth coming in, they're like, okay, easy, easy. They're like, am I saying things not true? Dude, that's not even the point. And so that causes Nye to have a tendency to be independent-minded if it has the power, or secretive, as mentioned before, if it doesn't, because people don't want to hear that truth, so you have to keep it to yourself. That's frustrating. Why do I have to keep the truth to myself? Just because people don't like hearing truth? That seems messed up. That seems not right. But it is the way things work. Truth has to come in doses. Nye does not like that. If I say it right in a nutshell, truth has to come in doses to all of the powers. Even Nye, it has to come in doses of what the person's current Nye consciousness can handle. So there's always that, it could be more, it should be more. Anyway, moving on to the overall thing of the theme of proactive theorizing and abductive reasoning. This goes back to the detachment and the unknown, which is Nye has a very frustrated point of view. It thinks that your own Nye, the rest of the powers in your psyche, everyone else's powers, every other system's powers, is not bringing in enough information. So Nye will just come up to anything and start with, let's look again. Even though people will say, we've looked everywhere, it's classic movies, I don't care if you looked at everything, look at it all again. People are like, oh, who let this dude in? Why? So there you go. So they're frustrated, and I'm frustrated, they're frustrated. Let's see if I can hit the counterbalances really quickly here. You have the subdivisions of the distinct signal of self-possessed or egomania. That's because Nye is a world on its own, and so it can detach and does not feel the need to take input from other sources that have less information to offer than it's already gone from. They're working from a smaller model. So that self-possession is very cool. It relates to the independence of mind. Negative part is it can be very dismissive and think that others have not done that. Maybe they have, or maybe there's something that they see that you don't see. There can be a belief by a lead detective that I'm so far in this case, people coming in from another part or whatever, how could they help me? I'm already at the edge of where the information coming in is. I'm at the event horizon. So the frustration there comes from, I'm saying all real quick and I'll do frustration at the end, is you also have the obsession / driven. Driven's the positive side, but the driven and obsession is if it's not healthy. Driven is you can keep it to a healthy degree of being pushed, and within healthy limits. It's a question of balance. And then the last one is original to eccentric. Because it's coming to spirit forms within, they are there before they touch anything else. Even abstractions came out of something and then became universal and then go back into something else. So they are universal, but after coming from a source. The spirit forms of Nye are coming from a Sims that has all the spirit forms, and then just certain ones pop out. When they do, they're like just bam, they're there. So they seem out of nowhere to the person and also to other people. Upside is it's original. Downside is people are like, why is everything so special with them? Why is it always a special way? They can't just be simple. Because Nye's not wired that way. But those three you can all see, that's frustrating on being self-possessed, driven, and original is why can't people see it? Why can't systems see it? That's frustrating. And then on the other people's end, they can see it as egomania. They can see it as obsession. They can see it as eccentricity. Why is this person so hard to deal with? And so there's frustration on both sides. But it's a great power that can channel unbelievable things, and when it's connected to other powers, its frustration is connected with the other distinct signals to create nice cuisine. So it's a great thing, and it's a good thing. It's just a bit, it's one of the harder ones to learn about and to master, but it is extremely vital, like Jai, to the overall health of the human collective and to the way we do things as a people. So.